I used to laugh at people who were scared of dolls. Tiny faces, glassy eyes. What could they possibly do? But one night, in the dead silence of my room, I heard a faint whisper. My blood ran cold. The voice was soft, but it was calling my name. If you love horror stories that crawl under your skin and stay with you long after the video ends, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let me tell you my story. You know, I've never been the kind of person who gets scared easily. Ghost stories, horror movies, creepy old houses. None of it really bothered me. And dolls? They were probably the last thing on my mind when it came to fear. People would talk about how dolls gave them the creeps, those glassy eyes that follow you around a room, the stiff, frozen smiles. But to me, they were just dolls. Nothing more, nothing less. Actually, when I was a kid, I kind of liked them. Not in a weird way. It was more because of my grandma. She had this little collection of old-fashioned porcelain dolls. They were beautiful, dressed in lace and tiny bonnets, with these delicate little shoes and painted rosy cheeks. I remember visiting her house, sitting on the old floral couch and just staring at them lined up on the shelf above her fireplace. Each one was different. Some had golden curls, some had deep brown eyes, and one even had little freckles. Grandma used to tell me their names, where she got them, little stories about each one. I think I loved them because she loved them. They reminded me of her, soft, kind, and full of old stories. I even had a couple of my own. Nothing fancy like hers, just a couple of dolls she bought me at flea markets and yard sales. I kept them in my room, sitting on a small wooden chair by my window. They were just part of the room, like a lamp or a bookcase. I never felt uneasy around them. If anything, they made me think of my grandma and those cozy afternoons in her living room. Honestly, fear was the last thing I associated with dolls. A few months ago, something strange happened. It was one of those quiet Saturdays where you're not really doing much, just kind of floating through the day. I decided to stop by this tiny thrift shop on the edge of town. I like old stuff, old books, vinyl records, random little trinkets. There's something about things that have a story, you know? Things that have lived in other people's homes. I was browsing the shelves when I saw it. A dollar, sitting alone on the top of a dusty wooden cabinet. It was different from the ones my grandma had. This one was older, rougher. Its porcelain face was cracked in a couple of places, like tiny veins under the surface. One of its glass eyes was half closed, like it was stuck mid-blink, and its dress, a faded blue, was torn at the hem. It looked forgotten, abandoned. I don't even know why I picked it up. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it reminded me of those days with my grandma. The tag hanging from its wrist just said $2. I smiled, shook my head, and bought it. It felt like no big deal at the time. Just another weird little thing to add to my shelf. When I got home, I placed it on the chair by my window, right next to the other old dolls. It fit right in, sitting there quietly. For a while, I barely noticed it. Days passed. I went about my life. But looking back now, I wish I'd left it where it was. There was something about that doll, something I didn't see in that moment. I thought it was harmless. I thought it was just another dusty old doll. I was wrong. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing people don't tell you about weird stuff. It's not like in the movies where the lights flicker and the walls bleed right away. No, it starts small, subtle, quiet enough that you convince yourself you're imagining it. At first, it was little things. I'd come into my room and swear the doll wasn't sitting the way I left it. I mean, it sounds ridiculous even saying it now. One day it would be facing the window. The next it seemed turned just a little, like it was looking toward the door. I blamed it on my own forgetfulness. Maybe I bumped the chair, or the cleaning lady moved it while dusting. It was easy to explain away. Then came the noises, soft, almost like a faint whisper, but too quiet to catch any words. It would happen at night when the house was still and I was lying in bed, half awake, half asleep. I'd hear this light rustling sound, like fabric moving. or sometimes a tiny tapping, like fingernails against wood. I told myself it was the wind, the house settling, or maybe a tree branch brushing the window. But deep down, something didn't feel right. I started noticing other things too. My keys wouldn't be where I left them. A book would be on the floor when I was sure I'd put it back on the shelf. Small, forgettable moments. Things that make you question your memory, not your reality. And yet, every time, that doll would be sitting there, silent, with that cracked porcelain smile watching. It sounds crazy, but it felt like the room changed when I was alone with it. Like the air got heavier, colder. I kept brushing it off. But it was getting harder. It was around 2 in the morning the first time it really happened. You know that strange, half-awake state where your body's heavy and your mind's still floating, somewhere between a dream and the real world? That's where I was. The room was dead silent, the kind of silence that actually feels loud, like your ears are straining for any sound. And then I heard it. It was faint but clear. A voice, a whisper, just one word, my name. It wasn't booming or dramatic. It was soft, careful, like someone leaning close to your ear in a quiet room, making sure only you could hear. My stomach dropped, my heart pounding so fast I could hear it in my ears. I shot up in bed, wide awake, every sense on high alert. But when I looked around, nothing. The room was exactly as it should be, dark, still. But there was something about the way that whisper sounded, like it wasn't coming from outside, or the hallway, or even from the air. It felt like it came from inside the room. And when my eyes landed on that chair by the window, on that cracked porcelain face, it felt like those glass eyes were staring straight at me. I wanted to tell myself it was a dream, that I was half asleep and imagined it, that it was the wind, the house, my own mind playing tricks on me. But deep down, something inside me shifted that night. A cold, unsettling feeling that wrapped around me and stayed, even after the sun came up. That was the moment I realized, whatever this was, it wasn't just in my head anymore. After that night, you'd think I would have done something, thrown the doll away, locked it in a closet, anything. But here's the thing about fear. Sometimes it's easier to pretend it isn't real, to tell yourself you're just stressed or overtired or imagining things. And that's exactly what I did. I blamed it on lack of sleep, told myself I must have been dreaming, or maybe the wind caught my name in just the right way, even though I knew, deep down, it didn't. I tried to laugh it off, moved the doll to a different spot in the room, facing it toward the wall so those glassy eyes wouldn't be watching me anymore. I thought maybe if I stopped looking at it, I could forget about it. But it didn't stop. The whispers didn't happen every night, but when they did, it felt like they were getting a little louder, a little clearer. Like whatever was speaking was becoming braver. And every time I'd wake up, that doll was always right where I left it, sitting perfectly still. That cracked little face, half a smile, staring at nothing, or maybe staring at everything. I started avoiding my room at night, sitting up late, leaving the TV on, pretending I wasn't afraid to turn off the lights. But the heaviness in the air, that crawling sense of being watched, it followed me. I told myself it was just my imagination, that if I ignored it long enough, it would stop. That maybe it was all in my head, fueled by too many horror stories and late-night shadows. But fear doesn't listen to reason. It waits, quiet, patient. And it was still there, sitting on that chair, waiting for me to break. It wasn't long before the dream started. Not the weird, hazy kind you forget when you wake up. These were different, vivid, heavy, the kind that cling to you even after you open your eyes. In the dreams, it was always the same. I'd be lying in my bed, just like I do every night, only the room felt wrong, darker, colder, and the doll would be there, sitting in its chair at first, then slowly, it would move. Sometimes it would stand up, those tiny porcelain feet making no sound against the floor. Other times I'd blink and it would be sitting at the edge of my bed, staring at me with that one half-closed glass eye. It wouldn't speak, not in the dreams. It would just sit there, its head tilted slightly, like it was listening, watching. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding so hard I'd feel it in my throat. And even then, lying in the dark, half convinced it was just a dream, I couldn't bring myself to look toward that chair. I didn't want to know if it was still there, or worse, if it wasn't. The room changed too. It's hard to explain, but the air felt heavier at night, like something invisible was sitting in the corner, waiting. The shadows stretched longer, even when the lights were on. And no matter how many times I told myself I was imagining it, the fear was real. It started creeping into my days too. That sense of unease, like I wasn't alone even when no one else was there. Every little creak, every flicker of light made me jump. I was unraveling, slowly, quietly, and the worst part was, I couldn't tell anyone. After weeks of this, the whispers, the dreams, the constant tension, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to tell someone, even if it made me sound completely insane. So one night, I called my friend Sam. He's one of those people who loves creepy stuff, the type who watches ghost hunting shows and visits abandoned buildings for fun. If anyone would listen without laughing, it'd be him. I didn't even know where to start. I kept saying things like, "You're gonna think I'm nuts," or "I know how this sounds, but..." And then it all came pouring out. The doll, the whispers, the dreams, the shifting shadows. I half expected him to laugh, but instead, he got quiet. Too quiet. Then he told me about something he'd read online, about old dolls carrying spirits, or being cursed or used in rituals. He said people have had similar experiences, hearing voices, seeing the dolls move, nightmares that bleed into real life. It should have made me feel better, like I wasn't alone, but it didn't. If anything, it made it worse, because if other people had gone through this, what happened to them? Sam told me to get rid of it, burn it, bury it, throw it in a river, whatever it takes, and he said. But for some reason I couldn't. I can't explain it. It was like this strange pull, like part of me was terrified, but another part felt connected, tied to it in a way that didn't make sense. After we hung up, I stayed up late searching online, stories, forums, creepy old articles. And the deeper I dug, the darker it got. I realized this wasn't just a bad dream anymore. Something was really, truly wrong. It finally happened on a night I'll never forget. I don't even remember what time it was. Everything kind of blurs together when you're that scared. I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, too afraid to close my eyes, too exhausted to move. The room was cold, like unnaturally cold. The kind of chill that sinks into your bones no matter how many blankets you have. That's when I heard it again. But this time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a sentence. "You can't leave me." I froze. It was clear, soft, and so close it felt like it was coming from right beside me. Every hair on my body stood up. I didn't want to look. I swear every part of me screamed not to, but I couldn't stop myself. I turned my head slowly toward the chair by the window, and it wasn't empty. The doll was standing on the floor, not lying, not tipped over, standing. Its cracked face tilted up at me, one glass eye shining in the dim light, the other half shut like it was winking. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I just laid there, paralyzed with this wave of icy terror rolling over me. And for a second, I swear to you, I saw its tiny porcelain hand twitch. That was it. That was the moment my fear became something else. I wasn't just unsettled or creeped out anymore. I was trapped. I knew deep down that this thing wasn't just an object. It wasn't just a doll. It was something else. And whatever it wasn't going to let me go easily. That was the night everything changed. I don't know what came over me, but after that night, I couldn't just sit there anymore. Fear can only hold you down for so long before something inside you snaps. I was done being afraid in my own house. I told myself, it's just a doll. It's porcelain and cloth. It can't hurt me, even if every part of me was screaming otherwise. The next evening, right before sunset, I grabbed it. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The second my fingers touched that cracked porcelain, it felt ice cold. Not like room temperature, not like it had been sitting by the window. It felt like something pulled straight from the snow. I told myself to keep going. I marched it out to the backyard, heart pounding, palms sweating. I didn't care what Sam said about spirits or curses. I was going to bury it, burn it, whatever it took. I grabbed a shovel from the shed and started digging. The whole time I felt like I was being watched. Every rustle of the leaves, every shift in the air made me jump. And then, just as I dropped the doll into the hole, I swear, I heard it again. Please, don't. But it wasn't angry. It sounded desperate, like a child begging not to be left alone. It hit me like a punch in the chest. For a moment I hesitated, standing there with dirt-stained hands, staring down at its cracked face, half buried in shadow. But I forced myself to do it. I covered it, packed down the earth, and walked away without looking back. I didn't care what it was anymore. I just needed it gone. Needed this nightmare to end. Or at least, I thought it would. You'd think that after everything I'd been through, I'd finally feel safe. That I'd wake up the next morning with that crushing weight lifted off my chest, the fear gone, the nightmare over. But it wasn't. It was far from over. I thought I'd buried it, literally buried it. I tried to forget about the doll, tried to tell myself I'd done the right thing. A few days went by, and everything seemed normal again. The house was quiet. No more whispers, no strange movements. I started to breathe again, to feel like myself. Then that night, just like before, I was lying in bed. And that's when it happened. I heard the whisper. It was faint at first, like a wind, almost gentle. But then it grew clearer, louder, unmistakable. You didn't think I'd leave that easily, did you? My heart slammed into my throat. I bolted upright in bed, my pulse racing. My eyes darted around the dark room, but I couldn't see anything. My mouth went dry. My hands started to shake. I rushed to the window, expecting to see it out there. But no, it wasn't in the yard. It wasn't anywhere outside. It was in the room with me. I turned around slowly, and there it was. The doll sitting on the chair by the window, right where I had left it. The same cracked face, the same half-shut glass eye, the same cold porcelain. But this time, it wasn't just staring at me. It was smiling. I don't know how it got back. I don't know how it's still here. But I do know one thing. It isn't over. And somehow, I'm never getting rid of it. If you're still watching this, you're braver than me. Tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain? And if you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and join me for more true horror stories, if you dare.